Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into a pretty heavy topic today.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
So, we're tackling this idea. Is love inherently tragic? We've got a
Mhm.
ton of fascinating material to dig into, literature, psychology, even some personal stories.
Mm.
Should be interesting to see what conclusions we reach, or if we even can.
Right. It's a question that's been pondered for centuries, right? There's just something about love, about how intensely we feel it, that seems like it just can't exist without the possibility of pain, you know?
Absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, even just thinking about like Romeo and Juliet, right? Classic,
Yeah.
tragic love story. And
Yeah.
it's like ingrained in our culture.
Totally. And their story kind of gets at those ecstatic highs and the devastating lows that come with passionate love, right? But there's also this deeper layer, this tension between what individuals want and what society expects of them. Romeo and Juliet's love was a challenge to the way things were supposed to be, and ultimately it cost them their lives.
It's true, and that's what makes their story so tragic, right? It's like their love was doomed from the beginning by things they couldn't control.
Yeah. Exactly. And that feeling of like inevitability of forces beyond our control, it's something we all sort of wrestle with in love, even today. I mean, haven't you ever felt totally powerless in your own love life?
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of painful experiences, a lot of what I read for today talks about heartbreak as being almost inevitable. Do you think that's being overly pessimistic, or is that just like keeping it real?
Yeah, I think it's more about acknowledging that life and relationships, they just have these natural ebbs and flows. People change, situations change, and sometimes love has to change too, or even end. As painful as heartbreak is, it's something almost everyone goes through. It's part of what makes us human.
So it's less about trying to avoid heartbreak and more about learning to deal with it when it happens.
Right. A lot of psychologists compare heartbreak to those stages of grief, and denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance.
Oh yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah.
But I always thought of them more in the context of like death and grieving a person. How do those stages apply to heartbreak?
Well, they can apply to any kind of significant loss, really, and that includes losing a romantic relationship. Recognizing those stages in ourselves can be so helpful. It can help us process all those difficult emotions and then eventually, move on.
That makes a lot of sense. But it's interesting, right? Because even though we know heartbreak is possible, we still put ourselves out there and look for love.
And I think that speaks to how alluring love really is,
Yeah.
right? The fact that it might not last forever, maybe that makes us appreciate the moments we do have even more.
That's a good point. It reminds me of something else we were going to talk about today. The idea of sacrifice in love.
Uh,
What do you think about that? Is sacrifice always necessary for love to work?
Well, that's where things get really nuanced, I think. Of course, healthy relationships require compromise, that's for sure. But that shouldn't mean completely erasing your own needs or your own identity. It's more about finding a balance, supporting your partner, while also staying true to yourself, giving and receiving.
Finding that balance is so important. It's easy to get caught up in those grand romantic gestures we see in movies and books, those big displays of sacrifice. But real life is usually a lot more complicated.
Definitely. Real life sacrifices are rarely so dramatic.
Right. And actually, a bunch of the source material I read included personal anecdotes, just people sharing their own experiences with sacrifices they'd made in the name of love. And some of them were pretty powerful.
Hmm.
Was there a particular story that stuck with you?
Yeah, there was one that really resonated with me. It was about a couple, and they were facing this difficult decision. One of them was offered like their dream job, but it meant moving across the country. The other partner would have to leave their own career, their friends and family, everything they knew. It was a lot to ask.
Wow. Yeah. What did they end up doing?
They did decide to go for it, to take the dream job. But, it came at a real cost for the partner who relocated. It wasn't about some big romantic gesture. It was just about tough choices, compromise, and supporting each other's dreams, even when it's hard.
It makes you think about how complex love really is, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes loving someone means letting them go after what they want, even if it means making sacrifices of your own.
Exactly. And I think that leads us right back to the question we started with. Is love inherently tragic?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about trying to avoid the pain or the loss. Maybe it's about recognizing that even though those experiences are hard, they can make us more loving, more empathetic, more resilient.
It's like by acknowledging that love can be bittersweet, that it's not always easy, we can actually experience it more fully, the highs and the lows, all of it.
I think so. It's in those moments of vulnerability when we let ourselves feel everything that we learn the most about ourselves and the people we love.
That's such a good point. Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive. Definitely a lot to unpack here. Love is messy and complicated and beautiful sometimes all at the same time.
It truly is. It's a journey, and one we never really stop exploring.
So true. Well, thanks for taking this journey with me today. It's been great having you here.
Thank you for having me.
And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll be back next time with another thought-provoking topic.